What's Next by Daniel Oliver. I didn't have to look at the clock to know it was 9 a.m. I could just feel it in my bones. I could feel it the same way I could feel the impending bloop of Teams and exactly 30 seconds indicating I've joined my first meeting. Once again, I would have to slip into my business casual personality 30 minutes before my coffee kicked in. I hate my business casual personality. It's a lot like my normal personality, except I have to do things like make eye contact and act like I know what I'm doing and say words like butthole less. Not never, just less. I would have 3 near identical meetings after that. Each conversation will be the same as it's been every morning for the past 2 years. They will all last for 1 hour, exactly 59 minutes longer than they should. 5 minutes after my last meeting, I'll get a knock on the door by one of the older office assistants. He will tell me that his internet is running slow. I will politely suggest that he try closing the 87 extra tabs he has open on his browser, like I showed him yesterday, and every day before that for the past 2 years. He will say he forgot and ask me to show him again. I will briefly consider strangling him with a phone cord. I won't. After that, I will field a handful of similar interactions, each one just as predictable as the last, until lunch, when I will eat a sandwich in my car and stare murderously into the void for 45 minutes. I know what you're thinking, and no, I can't see the future. I can, however, recognize a pattern, especially patterns that have unwavering commitments to consistency for 2 straight years. Humans are not supposed to live like that. Humans aren't supposed to know what's going to happen every goddamn second of every goddamn day. Humans need mystery. So I acted. I did what any other rational person in my position would do. I closed my eyes and threw some darts. One at a globe and another at a calendar. I didn't care where it landed. I would go to any country that dart hit, no matter how treacherous. Or, to a certain degree. I'm not saying I have anything against anyone at all. But if it hit something like, I don't know, Syria, again, no offense, but I might take a mulligan. Anyway, the point is, I was throwing caution to the wind in a reasonably spontaneous way. As the first dart sailed through the air, I caught myself hoping for an exotic island somewhere renowned for its sunny, white beaches and food that doesn't taste like feet. The dart hit England. That's what I get for the Syria comment, but I can work with England. I closed my eyes again and hucked a second dart at my calendar. This time, I caught myself hoping for spring or summer. Scents of fresh flower blossoms riding on the back of a cool British breeze filled my nose. The sounds of people pronouncing the word aluminium, like they want to get smacked rang in my ears, and for the slightest instant, I caught myself smiling. I opened my eyes. Mid-November. Fuck. After I bought the tickets, I booked an Airbnb, did exactly nothing else in terms of planning. I didn't care what I did or where I ended up. The only thing I wanted was to not know what was next. My Airbnb was a broom closet, but I didn't care because it had a bed and its own bathroom. I only intended to sleep there. The rest of the time, I was planning on being wherever the fuck the day carried me. Maybe it would carry me around all the touristy spots and back to my Airbnb to sleep. Maybe it would carry me to a bunch of pubs and cigar lounges. Maybe it would carry me to Underground Pugilism Society for Gentlemen, where the first rule about the Underground Pugilism Society for Gentlemen is you do not speak about the Underground Pugilism Society for Gentlemen. When I stepped out into the street in London for the first time, I took a second to gather my thoughts on the stupid building I was staying in. I looked down the street to my right. Then I did the same thing in the opposite direction. I decided that Guy Ritchie was a genius in color theory. Then I looked at my watch. It was 9 a.m. I had no idea. I also had nowhere to be and all day to get there. So I got on my way. I ended up walking to Westminster. On the way, I thought about how every building on every street corner probably had a story. Maybe not some big world-altering moment like the signing of a treaty, but surely some distant royal family member from the 1500s dumped a hooker's body behind a barrel of potatoes in one of those dark alleys. I wondered which groundbreaking historical figures had walked the same streets I was walking. Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, Winston Churchill, Idris Elba. Had they walked these streets? Had they thought about the same things I was thinking about? Like, I wonder if those people at the bus stop know I just crop dusted them. And is that the Notting Hill from the movie Notting Hill? I saw Parliament, Westminster Abbey, and some protesters for Brexit, or against Brexit. Whatever they weren't pleased. I took some pictures and strolled along the Thames and smoked some cigarettes while trying to look all broody and pensive in my peacoat and beanie like some cursed British artist. But I didn't think about art. Mostly I thought about how much my left hip was starting to hurt. But I guess that happens when you go from sitting on a plane for 8 hours to walking 10 miles without stretching in between. Being 35 doesn't help much either, but I powered through because I'm not that fucking old yet. Anyway, after that, I went back to the Airbnb and slept for 12 hours. The next day was a lot of the same. I didn't care what I did. I just didn't want to know what was next. However, I did know I didn't want to do anything uncaffeinated. So I got some coffee and joined the general flow of foot traffic for a while until I ended up at the National Warehouse of Other People's Shit. Here they call it the British Museum. There was cool stuff there. But I'm not really much of a natural history museum type of person. I like portrait museum, art museum. Not that what's at the British Museum isn't art. I just don't really get a boner for statues and mummies. I wanted to see portraits, so I walked to the National Portrait Gallery. The National Portrait Gallery was way more my speed. Probably because I know how hard it is to paint. I don't know how hard it is to sculpt, or make swords, or embalm a pharaoh. They did not offer those courses at the college I went to. After walking the entire museum 3 times, I decided that portraits make me feel a little romantic because all of a sudden I wanted someone to talk to. According to every Netflix movie where Lily James falls in love with some sheep farmer or something, people usually meet in quaint British cafes. So I decided to find a quaint British cafe. I would order a cup of coffee and strike up a conversation with a British woman reading a book in the corner. The conversation would evolve into a short-lived yet passionate fling that would end in a legal agreement wherein we raise our identical twin daughters in separate countries and never let them meet for some reason. I found a Starbucks and downloaded Hinge instead. While we didn't end up having twins, I still ended up matching with a delightful woman with whom I spent the next 3 days. Somewhere in those 72 hours, I also learned it takes less time to get from London, England to Paris, France, than it does to get from London, Texas to Paris, Texas. The European mind cannot comprehend the size of Texas. Anyway, I bought a train ticket to Paris. Then I did there what I did in London. I walked around. For 5 days, I had done a lot of not knowing what's next, so something familiar wasn't the end of the world. It was actually kind of nice. I got a sandwich and some coffee and walked to the Eiffel Tower. Then I walked to the Louvre. Then I walked to the Arc de Triomphe and back to the Louvre. I was apparently on a mission to destroy my hips and feet. I likely would have succeeded if my time hadn't run out. As I boarded the train from Paris back to London, I realized that for the first time in 6 days, I knew what came next. The airport. It was over. Back to reality. Back to routine. While sitting on the plane and watching the London skyline get smaller in my window, I couldn't help but think about what lay ahead. I thought about my office and my coworkers. I thought about what I had to do in the coming days and the predictable conversations that would follow. I thought about the torture of routine. Then I smiled and looked out the window again as London finally disappeared beneath the fog, and I thought about what might be on the other side of all that nonsense. What's next?
Yeah. See, that's nice. You clap till I get here, and then you shut up. And then I keep going, you know? We built a community here where everybody knows how things work, you know? At the court, I just say, and then it happens, you know? But y'all are catching on. We can come to the end of the show, you know? We got one more story left, so we're gonna get straight to it. But before I do, I just want to let y'all know, if you order something from the bar, you need to tip. Yeah. The Battle Alex. That's the bartender's wrestling name. We're losing the thread. Last story tonight, On Eclipses, written by a good friend of mine, the Bone Man, Chris Skelton, and read by John Head, Shoulders, Knees, Toes. The show's almost over.
All right, the first thought I have is whether my